everyone, and welcome back for week 3 of our Outdoor Explore program. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been learning about the birds, native plants, and pollinators of San Diego. And one thing we know now is that all of these different creatures have one big thing in common. They're all really dependent on healthy, clean water. So that's why I brought you here with me today to the San Diego River. It's the perfect place for us to learn about water quality, or the health of water, and how that can impact all of these different animals and ultimately our own health as well.
Clean water is essential to the survival of all living organisms. Plants, animals, and humans all need fresh, healthy water in order to survive. Did you know that humans can go weeks, even months without food? But we can only survive a few days without water. It's that important. And the quality of that water matters too. Water that is filled with dirt and debris, things like sticks, leaves, and rocks, may be good enough for a plant to drink, but would you want to drink it? No way. Water quality can be thought of as the health of the water depending on its use. For example, drinking water needs to be extra clean and free of any bacteria or living organisms. But healthy ocean water is actually filled with tiny marine organisms. That ends up being okay because we don't use ocean water for drinking. That's the thing with water quality. It all depends on the use. So just how much water is there available for us to drink? Our planet Earth is considered a water planet. That means about 70% of its entire surface is covered in water. Of all that water, 97% of it is salty ocean water, which means there's only about 3% that's actually fresh water. That 3% fresh water doesn't sound like a lot, does it? Well, actually, 2 of that 3% is frozen in ice or hidden underground, so that leaves only 1% of all the Earth's water actually available for us to drink. So where does that water come from? Water is constantly moving around through the water cycle. Starting out as rain or snow, water falls on the Earth and gets moved along in rivers and lakes, and eventually evaporates back up into the clouds, where it's then stored until it falls back down and the cycle starts all over again. And as the water is moving from high in the mountains to down into the ocean, it follows a very particular path called a watershed. You can think of a watershed as a big natural bowl. The rain and snow that fall high in the mountains run down the sides of the bowl and create streams or rivers. These flowing bodies of water all keep moving until they make their way to the ocean. As the water travels along its journey, it passes through our cities, farms, houses, and factories. When it does this, it often picks up contaminants like garbage, chemicals, and sewage along the way. This is how our fresh rainwater goes from healthy drinking water to water with an unhealthy quality. These pollutants also go into our groundwater. Groundwater is water that's found underground in the cracks and spaces between soil, sand, and rocks. Though groundwater can be invisible to us since it's hidden underground, it's very important to plants, animals, and people too. When it gets super dry, trees will reach their roots all the way down into the groundwater to get the water they need. People dig wells that tap into groundwater for drinking and irrigating crops. If we allow pollution to seep down into the groundwater, it can be very difficult, even impossible to remove, and then those pollutants can contaminate our drinking water and food. Have you ever noticed how water looks particularly dirty after a rainstorm? During the rainy season, rain sometimes falls faster than the soil can absorb. This means that more sediments get into the river than is healthy for the water. Luckily, many of the plants that are growing along the water's edge, or the riparian zone, help filter some of the sediment out of that water. As we learned, even the ground itself helps filter the water before we end up drinking it.
Today we're going to explore some of the different things that help keep our water clean. First, let's take a look at how plants can help make our waterways healthy. In some places along the San Diego River and other water sources here in San Diego grow a densely packed group of plants called cattails. Many of these cattails are a native plant here in San Diego. They like to grow in very wet areas right along the river's edge. Their roots are submerged in the water, and they grow long-leaved blades, as well as long stalks with flower heads up along the top.
In fall and winter, the flowers pop open and the seeds are easily carried away by the wind. Cattails serve a very important role in keeping riparian habitats healthy. Their roots help slow the water flow and filter out any sand, silt, and soil from the water. They can also help filter out pollutants, not only making our river a healthy habitat for animals, but for helping to keep harmful chemicals and sediments out of our water as well.
Now let's take a break and do a cattail art project to learn about all the different parts that make up a healthy riparian ecosystem. Each of you will be getting a white sheet of paper. On your paper, you can draw the different parts of the river, including some water, animals, the sun, and the cattails that are along the river's edge. Then, your teacher will be passing out some green paper that you can use to cut out cattail leaves, as well as some brown felt that you can use to create the flower heads up on the top. The felt has a sticky back, so all you have to do is just peel it off and then cut it to be the right size, or you can use some glue if you'd like. We'll be creating these art projects so that we remember all the different parts that make up a healthy riparian ecosystem. After you complete this project, we'll go over a few different ways we can all work together to help protect nature. In past years for Outdoor Explore, we've been able to experience nature together out on our hikes. Unfortunately, although that isn't an option for now, I do want to encourage you to get out and enjoy nature around your home or your school. You might even have a chance to visit some of the places from our videos. You could head out to Tecolote Canyon, Ruffin Canyon, or even come here to the San Diego River. Now, when you go out in nature, there's a few things to keep in mind so that you help protect the amazing plants and wildlife we've been learning about, as well as to help keep yourself safe. So my first tip is to always keep your distance from wildlife. You may see a squirrel or a bird and want to go running up to it, but we need to remember that most of these animals are super shy, and we don't want to scare them away from their nest or their food. So it's best for us to keep a good distance between any wildlife we encounter and ourselves. Your second tip is to make sure that anything you find in nature stays in nature. Even if you see a really cool wildflower or a rock that you want to take home, we want to remember that these things are more important for the animals in our community than they actually are for us. So we can take pictures or write things down that we see to help us remember, but we want to be sure to leave nature here in nature. And my last tip is to please make sure to pick up all of your trash and garbage. Most of the garbage that falls up by our houses or by our schools, it actually ends up flowing down into our waterways and out into the San Diego River, which leads here to the Formosa Slough and even out into the ocean. So it's really important for us to make sure that all of our trash goes into the trash bin now that we know how it can affect our water. So now that we've learned how we can help protect water, we'll learn a little bit more about what to expect during this week's lab. For this week's lab, we'll be building our own water filters and testing them using natural materials. This is probably our most challenging lab activity yet, but I'm confident you all will do an amazing job after everything you've been learning over these past 3 weeks. Again, like last week, this lab has quite a few steps and materials, so I'm just going to show you a quick preview of what to expect, and then you'll be guided through your lab step by step with the San Diego Audubon educator soon. This lab is going to have some individual materials, as well as some materials at stations. Each of you will be getting 3 plastic cups, 2 of which you can leave empty, and then 1 you're going to fill at least halfway with water. You'll also be getting a spoon, a purple filter, and a water filtration worksheet, which you'll need a pen or a pencil in order to complete. For stations, there will be 4 bowls, 1 with cotton balls, 1 with small rocks, 1 with larger rocks, and 1 filled with sand. Teachers, you'll probably want to set up about 2 or 3 of these different stations. So 4 bowls in a couple different places around the classroom. That way they're well spaced out so students can go up and get the materials they need. So one of the important things for us to understand with this activity is that nature actually does a really great job of filtering our water. So when it rains, water falls down onto the surface of our earth, the soil and the dirt. Then it kind of soaks down below that layer into some rocks that we can't actually see, and then even further down into something called groundwater. So for our lab this week, we're going to be trying to kind of recreate this process of using natural materials to actually create clean water. So the very first thing that we're going to do is create some dirty water. Your teacher can walk around with a bag of soil, and you'll use your spoon to grab a spoonful of it and actually put it into your cup that is full of water. You can use your spoon to kind of mix it around in there, and it may not mix perfect, but we just want our water to be somewhat dirty. Now this water is going to have some dirt and maybe some sticks in it, but we can think back to earlier. What this might actually represent is kind of chemicals and other types of pollutants. So that's what we're kind of imagining that we want to be clearing out of our water. So taking a look at this water, would you want to drink it? No way. So our goal today is to see how clean we can get this dirty water. So you're going to be using your empty cup and your purple filter to create a filtration system. But before we do that, it's good to kind of come up with a plan for how we want to create our water filter. So on your worksheet, you're going to notice experiment A and how there's a little cup right here. You'll see that the very first thing on the bottom of that experiment, it says cotton ball. So that is going to be the very first thing that we add into our filter, but we're going to take some time to figure out the rest of the things we want to add. Beyond that, it'll be up to you to decide which material to use next. So you can use the word box above at the top of your worksheet to help you plan out. So, I think for mine, I'm going to go ahead and add large rocks up above where it says cotton ball, then maybe some small rocks, and then sand on top. So once you've filled in your worksheet using your pencil, then you can take your purple filter with you and your spoon, and you're going to head over to those stations that your teacher set up, and you're going to actually build the filter. So I'm going to find my cotton ball, and I'm going to kind of pull it apart and stick it down at the bottom of my filter. The next thing I said I was going to add was large rocks. So I'll use my spoon to get a spoonful of those and actually place them on top of the cotton ball. Then I'm going to grab some small rocks on top of that, spoon those guys in. And then the very last thing I was going to add to mine is some sand. So I'll use my spoon again to put the sand into the filter. And once you've used your spoon to put all your materials inside your filter, then you can head back to your desk to actually test your filtration system. So now back at your desk, you'll take your purple filter and you're going to set it so that it rests along the top of one of your empty cups. So this might take a second to get it to kind of balance on here, and you might even need to use one of your hands to just hold it in place. Once you have it in place, you're going to very slowly pour your dirty water in through the top of your filter, allowing it to get filtered through the materials below. So be sure to do this pretty slowly because sometimes at first it takes just a little while for the water to get started. So you'll start kind of pouring in the top, be patient, let it filter through. And while you're doing this, you want to use only about half of your water cup, your dirty water, because we're going to be using it again for experiment B. So you'll pour some of your water in. Hopefully you all will fill your cups up with a little more water than I did, but eventually it's going to start trickling through there. So now what I can do is compare the water that I just filtered with the dirty water I started out with. And you guys can see that it's already a lot cleaner just by using a few simple natural materials. All right, so I'm pretty proud of how clean this water actually turned out, but honestly, I bet I could do even better. So during your lab, you're gonna have at least 2 chances to build and test your water filters. So for the second experiment, you'll actually take your purple filter over to the trash, toss out the materials, and then try again. So you'll have space on your worksheet to plan out experiment B, figure out which order you want all of those things to go in, and then you can head back over to your stations to build it again. So that's a quick preview of what you can expect from your lab this week during Outdoor Explore. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed learning more about clean water and our water here in San Diego. And we'll be seeing you all soon for your water filtration lab.